is an agency of the Government of Ontario, and it's composed of people that are appointed by the provincial government. And over the years, it's pretty well, I would say it's reflective of the government of the day. So that's one of the best things about the Farm Products Marketing Act is the way it's set up. It doesn't have a particular agenda for anything. It's an enabling statute that allows these boards and agencies to operate and meet the realities of the current time that they're in. So, you know, what worked in 1990 or 1980 or whatever, it doesn't work today. We're in a different world. So the beauty of this act and this commission that we deal with is that its mandate is not spelled out in the legislation. It's just there to supervise, keep an eye on you guys, make sure you're following the rules. It decides what powers you get. It decides how you use them. If you get out of line, you can be corrected by the commission. And I'm pleased to say that hardly ever happens because generally the fact that your directors know that they're in a certain box they have to stay within. And if you stray outside, you're going to get your wrist slapped, and you might even get the power taken away. So pull the plug. Yeah. Oh, sorry, Elmer.
That was done in the past, though. Was that the commission that did that?
That was, yeah, the famous the Rutabaga board. That's the.
No, egg farm.
The egg board was put in trusteeship too because a certain fellow from Eastern Ontario wasn't following the rules at all. No, that's true, yeah. So anyway, it's a powerful agency of the government, but it exercises its power in subtle ways, I guess, is the best way to put it. It's a source of information, it's a source of expertise, and someone you can, whoever the marketing representative is a liaison person with the government. So it's been very helpful over the years to have someone that you can talk to that's somewhat tuned into what the government would like to see happen, and then you guys try to make that happen if it's in the interest of your producers. It also represents agriculture through the regulated commodities with the rest of the agencies of the Government of Ontario. So if the Ministry of Transport's causing problems for farmers, or the Ministry of Environment, or the Ministry of Finance, then there's a voice there, government to government, which is kind of helpful for the producers. Then it plays a role on the national stage because it has the authority of the province of Ontario. So it's taken seriously when your guys go to Ottawa and there's someone from the commission there, then the people that from the other provinces know they're speaking with someone with authority, and that's always very helpful. And then the last point is, as I started to say at the beginning, it represents the public interest in government policy. So whatever the particular ideas of the government that's been elected to run this province, somehow the commission interprets that and tries to imbue that into what you're doing here as a marketing board under provincial government authority. So that's pretty well it. Any questions? Well, thank you very much.
Well, as per our agenda, we have a couple people that are going to speak on behalf of Farm Products Marketing Commission, and it's my pleasure to introduce Elmer Buchanan. I first met Elmer back in, probably 92, somewhere in there. Anyway, he was the Minister of Agriculture, and I was involved with ag leadership. So we had a meeting. One of our seminars was in Peterborough, and Elmer was there and filled us in on everything that was going on in the government at that point. So anyway, Elmer Buchanan is a self-employed farmer and a consultant for the Ontario Horse Racing Industry Transition Panel. He retired as a secondary school principal, vice principal, and teacher after 25 years with the Hastings County School Board. Mr. Buchanan was the Ontario Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs from 1990 to 1995. His community involvement includes serving as chair of Celebrate Havelock, director of the Havelock Chamber of Commerce, past director of the Greater Peterborough Economic Development Corporation, and past director of the Hastings Children Aid Society. He has been vice chair of the Ontario Farm Products Marketing Commission since 2008. Mr. Buchanan holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from Queen's University and a certificate from Peterborough Teachers College. Please help me welcome Elmer Buchanan.
Thanks very much, Scott, for those kind words. I think you sort of saw it all on the Wilson there. He, I think, stole most of the thunder. I did appreciate that introduction, though, because I was at a sheep meeting a week ago at the banquet, and the MC went up to the podium, something similar to this, and said that I was his mentor, and he'd learned how to speak and how to deal with the public through my mentorship. And then he reached in his pocket and brought out 2 bottles of beer and set them on the podium. And it was that point I wasn't sure that I was being celebrated or just what the opportunity was. So at least Scott didn't do that to me this evening. Very happy to be here, and I'll try to be very brief. I don't have that much, but I would like to offer a few insights and some concepts of what the Commission is and does, because quite frankly, we have boards, directors of different commodities come to the Commission, and we usually have each of the commodities, the major commodities, come in once a year to our meeting and make a presentation and do the accountability session. And some directors who've been on various boards for a while, not exactly sure what the Commission's all about. So as new people, perhaps the industry, this is an opportunity to sort of hear it from the horse's mouth, if I could use that term, since that's one of my other occupations, as to what the Commission is and what it does. And at the moment, there are 7 members, appointees, and you saw the bit about being appointed by the minister, what that was code for political appointees. And later on, you heard Rob mention about the government of the day. That means that sometimes it matters what political stripe you happen to have in your back. Not always, because I'm certainly one of the ones that would be seen as an exception, because I've been appointed to a couple different things by a Liberal government. So politics does not always matter. You do get good people, which you do have on the Commission. But there's 7 of us at the moment. Jerry Commence, who is the chair, as most of you will know, is a former president chair of the OFA, and he's been at the Commission now for a number of years. We supervise and oversee 23 different boards in the province. 19 of them are marketing boards. 3 of them are what are called Section 12s. They're basically associations, but they do not have the powers of a regular marketing board. Regulated marketing, which is what we're talking about here, has about $12 billion in sales in the province, and about 1/3 of that comes from supply management, and you are one of the 5 supply management SM5 boards in the province that is sacred, I think, to agriculture in Ontario. And if I could digress on a little political trail here, when I look out at you this evening, I'm seeing the youngest crowd I've seen in agriculture for some time. And we see that quite often when we get into supply management, where in fact people are able to make a living, return on investment in agriculture in the supply management sector. Some of the other sectors, I mentioned sheep just a minute ago. I was the youngest person, I think, in the room at the sheep meeting a week ago, which gives you a sense of the age of the folks involved in some of the other sectors. It's a great system. So how does the Commission fit into this? Well, there's an Agriculture, Food, and Rural Affairs Act that designates various powers to the commission through the Farm Products Marketing Act, which I think you saw up here earlier, which gives a whole series of powers to the commission that I'm the vice chair of. The commission then has to pass some regs which establish what the commodity is that you are in, what the product is the word that we use. The districts, and I think I heard Rob this afternoon mention that this reg establishes the districts and the size of your board, et cetera. Then most of the other powers that we have, we designate to your board, the various boards in the province. So then you have the power to make marketing regulations, which you then send to us, and we then approve them, and then you can carry on. We also then have the power, various powers, that if you're not doing what it is you're supposed to, we can do various things. Things like hold hearings, we can intervene in your business and do all sorts of things, which is the heavy-handed regulator aspect of the business. We don't do that very often. I made a joke, though, I think when Scott or Rob were up here, the tobacco board, a few years ago, we dissolved the tobacco board and appointed three individuals, I believe it was, to run the tobacco board affairs. Back when I first started on the commission, for those of you who might have anything to do with pork, we held major hearings to do with single desk selling. Now, this wasn't the commission trying to inject ourselves into the business of the boards. Our business is usually complaint driven. So if we get complaints from egg farmers or from whatever farm sector it is, the commission then usually would look into it and make a decision about what would be a suitable response. So we are kind of a complaint-driven organization. We don't get involved in your business usually unless we hear complaints. So that's important to remember, that we don't go around looking to stir up trouble or find out what you're doing. As potential or as actual members, though, one of our frontline raison d'etre is to make sure you're getting value for your fees, your checkoffs. That's one of our #1 issues that Deb Whale, who some of you will know and some of you may not, always wants to know whether the members are getting value for their checkoff. And if the commission thinks that the board or the people in charge of the money are throwing it away, there'll be some questions about how you're spending your money and so on. So that's a complaint-driven operation. We can intervene, and this act gives a lot of power to the board, and the commission has the ultimate power of things that you would not expect. In other words, they can come into your farm and inspect your books. They don't have to give you warning they're coming. They simply show up. They have the right under this act to check your books, to check in this case, your flock conditions, etc. They don't have to get a warrant. They don't have to do any of that thing. This act is much more powerful than some of the criminal code, where you wouldn't be allowed to enter somebody's premises to check their books. But it's not used very often. You've heard that from others. It's not a threat. I just want you to know that the commission is the one that sits over top of that to make sure that the board and the people who are running your affairs are doing it properly. There's lots of legal protection and so on to make sure it's being done properly and not just as a response to a complaint or something. So there certainly is protection, but it's a very powerful act. The commission has got an awful lot of power over the boards and the boards over you through these two acts that I mentioned. The other one I didn't mention earlier is the Milk Act, which governs dairy, which is this whole separate act. It's very similar to the Farm Products Marketing Act as well. I know you're not in dairy, but those are the two things the commission administers: the Farm Products Marketing Act, the Milk Act. And if you want to know all the powers and all the legal side of it, if you go to your web tonight when you're sitting up in your room with Coke, yes. If you go in and look up Farm Products Marketing Commission or the Farm Products Marketing Commission Act, I've got 10, I'm not going to read them to you, 10 long powers and so on, which details the powers that the commission has through that act. But you can learn a lot of information about what sorts of thing the commission does. It's not I don't think it's a power-hungry, nasty group, but we are there as the, quote, regulators to make sure that you're getting value for your checkoff money, which is important to us, as I said. One last thing that is somewhat new for the commission. We do have a couple of folks who have been around a little while. When I first went on the commission, it was a bureaucrat, ADM, who was the chair. And without being too disrespectful, the commission members often went to the meeting and the plan was pretty well laid out. The motions had been written. All I needed was a mover and a seconder, and everybody put their hands up, and things moved on. And Russell Duckworth, who a couple of you in the room might know, who ran the commission back in the 90s when I was there, the commission was kind of a public appointees rubber stamping exercise. The current commission is much more active. We actually have advisory committees now. We're actually working with chicken, where we have processors and retailers and farmers sitting down with the commission as a host to try to be preventative and be proactive rather than just simply be the cop, the regulator, which is kind of new. We now have a chair who comes from industry rather than someone from government. So the police, I like to say in my horse racing side of the business over there, is that our officers, which are police officers out there, we're trying to put them in front of the sign rather than behind the sign with a radar gun. In other words, we're trying to do prevention so you don't get into trouble. Nobody gets into trouble. We do prevention stuff rather than run around and try to catch you doing something wrong, which is not in anybody's interest. So the commission over the last 5 years has kind of looked to try to help avoid problems rather than create issues for folks, which is quite a change from when I first went there. Sophie's in the room. I'm sure she'll, who's the analyst back there for eggs, and whether she was introduced earlier, the staff person, and she's been around the commission for a few years and I think knows what I'm talking about. When I first went to the commission, and I was told not to say anything in the first 2 meetings till I learned how to, behave and what to say. Obviously, I'm not very well trained on not saying anything and didn't do very well. And Jim Clark, the other guy who was from the Ontario Cattle Feeders, or corn-fed beef, we didn't do very well at this, not saying anything, and we got in trouble right off the bat. So very pleased to answer any questions if you have any. The commission is hopefully here to keep regulated marketing. You heard some good comments earlier this afternoon about supply management, how important it is. It is important for you as having a future in agriculture, and for, goodness sakes, don't lose sight of that. And you need to stick together as farmers, people in agriculture, because that is your future. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Are there any questions for Elmer?
Maybe just as Elmer introduced Sophie as Stand Up Wave, she's the commodity analyst for eggs, chicken, turkey, pork. So the boards, the 26 or 27 boards that Elmer talked about, all have analysts that, if you would, communicate, liaison, basically with staff, mostly staff to staff. And so I've already met with Sophia once, and so we would plan on getting together 2 or 3 times a year just to update through obviously emails and stuff, but a face-to-face meeting just to update what's going on a number of different files. So the board does appear before the commission. Usually the executive goes and they look at our business plan. So another function of our business plan is to identify what we've been doing. We did receive an inquiry last year in terms of what type of additional governance training, et cetera, the board goes through, and we're able to provide them with some information. So it's a very interactive role that we have with the commission. And as I said earlier, the last thing we want is to appear on any minister's briefing notebook in a bad way. So I just wanted to point that out, Scott.
Thanks, Harry. I just want to mention that we work very hard with our relationship with the commission and also the council, national councils, as much as we can. That's more a function of what EFC does with national council. And as Harry says, we've had meetings with the commission. My father always used to say that every system has to have some checks and balances. And that's where I think the commission comes in, that they have to see that we are being responsible. I really think that the commission has dealt very well with the marketing agencies under their control. I don't think they overstepped their boundaries, or I haven't heard of anybody complaining in that regard anyway, and appreciate, Elmer, your involvement with the commission and everybody else that's involved with it. So again, it's when you have the regulations we have, there has to be a body there that helps balance things, and I think we have, I would say we have a good balance with our commission in Ontario. So any questions for Elmer at all? I know, and just one other point, I was at the Open for Business meeting a couple weeks ago with Minister Leal, and Jerry really offered some really good information. Again, I shared it with our board about the value of the products that come through supply management and all the regulated marketing boards that the commission has responsibility for. And he also put the plug in that if you think, you know, you need our help, that they're there to help whatever product you're trying to market in Ontario. So anyway, on that, Elmer, thank you very much for your comments and your support. And on behalf of Egg Farmers Ontario, I'd like to present you with this small gift of our appreciation.